The last point I want to make just about Joseph himself. Okay, so he's dead. Unlike Jacob, he didn't ask him to be buried, the brothers, to go and bury him in Canaan. He could have. He didn't. Why? Yes, maybe again politically, because of the position he filled there in the country. For that reason, they might not have let him gone, being buried there or something. But I don't think. I mean, it could have maybe kind of. But that's not what I think in the teaching as well. I said what I think, and I will just say it again, is the fact that I think this was the reason Joseph did was as a proof of his faith. I believe God said that He will take us back to the promised land. He will visit you and He'll take us back. So I believe that ultimately God will do that. So my being buried here is an act of faith. Right? So when God visits you, as He promised He would, then you take my bones and you go and bury them. So this final act of Joseph was this act of faith in the promise of God. So when they're now on the way to the promised land, for the people on the way to the promised land, they would have thought, oh yeah, right, this is what he did. So all those years living in Egypt, they knew Joseph's bones are there. And they knew what Joseph said, that God will. So this would have been like a sign to them throughout the years, and nearly 200 years they were enslaved in Egypt. Well, they weren't enslaved the whole time, understandably, but part of living there and then the enslavement part would have been a sign that this is not the end. Joseph believed, and God will visit. God will. And now they're in the desert, and they can see that God kept His word. Now, if God kept His word concerning to Joseph, and Joseph believed it, and now it's been fulfilled, this is not now any more faith, this is now a proof of, this is knowledge, this is a fact. We are going back there. So that again ought to have been good reason for them to stay strong on the way to the promised land and to enter the promised land without fear of fighting battles or fighting the big man living there, in the tall man, the giants living there in the land of Canaan. If Joseph could have had the faith, they ought to have. Abraham had that faith. They all had that faith. But why now, all of a sudden, after everything is said and done, after everything God has done, distrust God in such a way? So it makes as well, ultimately, their not entering the promised land immediately so much worse. No excuses. Like the brothers had no excuse to sell Joseph. They had no excuse because they had all this history. Moses teaching them that history. I mean, that science, that God, the cloud and everything. And they still didn't hold on. And for us, what does it mean? Right? Faith is Hebrews, faith. Jesus promised that He will come back. Now it's 2,000 years later, give or take, depending on exactly when He died. We're not 100% sure. Right? 2,000 years is not 200 years. It does not look good. Right? It's not as if I look around me and say, okay, well, there's Jesus, right? He's coming. It might be another 1,000 years. It might be another 10,000 years. And that might be another 200,000 years. We have no idea. We have absolutely no idea. God knows. Jesus will come back in His time. Okay? So what we don't need to do is to live in fear of when He's coming back, but to doubt the fact that He's coming back. Like they had no reason to doubt that they will go to the promised land and God will visit them and they will enter the promised land. The same way, we as Christians have no reason to doubt that God will keep His word and that Jesus will come back. When? We don't know. But we have the faith. And that faith is not based upon thin air, just thin air, upon nothing. That faith is based upon, like for them, it was based upon Joseph's bones physically lying there waiting to be carried back. For us, go take part in communion. There's that sign. Be baptized. There's a sign. Go to church. Meet with other Christians. The Word of God. Nature. There's so many signs of God and who He is and that He exists. And He promised, and throughout the whole Word of God, we see Him promising and we see Him keeping His word always, although we break it so often. So for that reason, take courage. Don't doubt. Your faith is not based on thin air. It's based on facts, literally. And He will come back. Till that day, when He comes back, we can wait in patience. You most likely will die before then. Maybe not, most likely. But it's not the end of the world, because He said, He keeps His promise, He will keep it, and He will come back.